Hi.
Hello, Lama Surya
Hi. How are you tonight, today,
this morning.
morning? Good morning.
Good
Wake up.
morning.
Awakening. Now.
Exactly. Oh, look, thank you so much for speaking with me. I am, I have been a long time student of yours, a student that you've never met, although we were at a Ramdas retreat with you a few years ago. But
Uh-huh.
I used to practice your Tibetan yoga
Oh,
DVD.
great. Yeah. I'm proud of that.
Yes,
I like that. Was it good for you?
I loved it. I absolutely loved it. Yeah, it was wonderful. And then following from there, I did your Dzogchen meditation training
Mm-hmm.
from Sounds True.
Excellent.
I've done that
Proud of that. I like
at
that.
at least four times, and I used to tune into your podcasts when you would do those regularly. They were absolutely superb. And I want to thank you for bringing these amazing teachings into my life. And I feel like this is where I would love to start our conversation. I I do these trainings of yours often lying in bed when I'm co-sleeping with the little ones, and I'm getting these profound
Hmm.
Tibetan teachings as I lie in my house in my bed, and I'm wondering if that and for you, you had to leave everything that you knew and go to Tibet and and do the work, and I'm wondering if that
I
is
was one
something.
of the little ones then. I
Is
was
that
like one of the little ones then, although I was 20.
Yeah, is that
You know,
something that is right with the world or wrong with the world, that I can lie in bed and get these profound wisdom pearls of Dzogchen and not even leave my house?
I think that's something very, very right and fortunate that we can appreciate. Don't
Yeah.
you?
Yeah, I
I
do.
mean, technology, fast communications, media, material progress, you know, it has its benefits, modern medicine, as well as, its downsides. So everything's about balance.
Yeah.
And not everybody has to do exactly the same things. And I had to give up some things to do that. You know what I did, like family and kids. Although I love kids and have a lot of kids and grandkids, step grandkids and god kids and bambinos, neighbor bambinos in my life. But I have to settle for dogs in the house.
Oh,
Anyway, we're recording, and is this a video podcast or audio or what?
yeah, we do both. We do an audio and a video, but if you would prefer to have just audio, we can do that. Whatever
No,
you're comfortable with.
video's fine. I just want to know if
Yeah.
like, if I recommend something, I should hold it up, things like
Yes.
that. You know,
Yes.
if
Yes.
I should like,
Absolutely. That's
you
right.
know what I mean. If I should play the drum or ring the bell or show mudras or just talk.
Yeah.
And if you do you edit this or we just use most of or all of this?
We just use the whole thing. Yeah, we use the whole thing.
Good, fine,
Yeah. Yeah.
great. So where are you actually in space? I think you're in Australia, but I can't remember if it's Melbourne or one of the other places that I don't know.
We
Melbourne,
are we are in Perth,
that's right, Perth.
which is
That's
on the
the way up
west
north,
coast.
isn't it? West, yeah, far
Yeah.
from
Yeah.
Sydney and Melbourne. Yeah.
Yeah, it is far, and during this pandemic, Western Australia, the city of Perth is known to be the most isolated city in the world. And not only is it isolated from other major um, capital cities, they have had a hard border and really closed down to the world. So it has been quite interesting to be here, and there's a lot of space, but within this space, we've been unable to travel. So it's
So
interesting.
does that mean? it's been closed to the world during COVID, or it's been
Yes.
closed to the world historically, like Japan or something was.
No, just during COVID,
Yeah.
it has been
And
it
did
has been
that
closed.
work? Did that work out
Well,
in terms of the pandemic being weak or slight?
yes, it's virtually non-existent here, but then we can't continue life in a bubble.
No, right.
So it feels like
But,
it's just delaying the inevitable.
well, good luck with that. Now there's the Omicron variant, but we've lost 800,000 Americans are dead,
Mm.
and other people in other places. So it's a lot. Of course, we have a lot more population than Perth or Australia, but still, it's 800,000 souls. It's not insignificant.
No, that's right.
We have to do
That's right.
something, and people are still arguing about science and masks and vaccinations. So it's a time to wake up a little and face reality, whatever that is. I'm not going to try to define it, but get our heads straight. When I
Yeah.
become clearer, everything becomes clearer. That kind of thing. That's why I teach meditation and it's self-knowledge, etc.
Yes, you and I have been talking about that a lot, about um, how we cultivate clear view, and in particular when there are so many polarizing opinions coming through. And we've also been talking a lot about the concept of blind faith, particularly when it comes to religious studies and yoga and teachers, but also it, of course, applies to the greater context of what is happening in the world. Do you have any? I know. Listening to you, you used to say that your teacher would call you the why man. Is that right, or the question man, or?
Well, a translation from the Tibetan by Colin, in English, it would be the question man.
Yeah.
But the Y man is good. Like I used to say, I think I have two Y chromosomes, not just one. Why? I drove my father crazy. He said, "Because I said so, Jeffrey. Just leave me alone."
And perhaps that is why you're here today, so wise with having asked the questions. And it is important, isn't it, to ask questions? Or
It
is
is.
there?
People have different styles.
Mhm.
Not everybody has the same personality or body type or whatever, nationality, gender, color, etc. in this diverse world. But questioning seems to be one of the great ways. There's also serving, and there's, humbling, and there's working, and there's physical. But I've always been a seeker, and questioning and inquiry is an important part of that. Dealing with life's big questions. That might sound a little mental or intellectual, but there are different ways of inquiring that are not all intellectual and intuitive, and what you mentioned, yoga and things like that. So I think if we ask the right question, it's better than trying to find and accept an easy right answer. The right question, and art means our authentic question. What's really eating up one's own innards? What's really driving you? Which we formulate in different ways, no doubt. What is
Yeah.
the meaning of life? Is there a God? What happens if we die? Why do bad things happen to good people? The big questions. What is love? How should I live? So whatever your question or questions is, and I wouldn't say proliferate thousands of questions. If we now try to whittle it down or refine our thinking or inquiry, self-inquiry, etc. Socrates said, "Know thyself." That's the beginning of Western philosophy. Know thyself. Not something that we work on that much in school, it seems. How do we do that? And how does that include others? Not just self, narcissistically. selfishly. So in Buddhism, for example, I teach Buddhism, although I'm not really thinking like that. I'm more transmitting awakening, let's say, or something. That's my mission. But I teach Buddhist meditation, etc., and I'm a Lama in the Tibetan Buddhist tradition. In the 7 factors of enlightenment taught by Buddha, or recipe for enlightenment with 7 ingredients, it's called the 7 factors of enlightenment if you want to look it up. One of them is, of course, mindfulness. Another one is loving kindness, but one is investigation. So it's not to take it on blind faith, but to find out for yourself, to check it out and see if, whatever is true, if it works, if it's useful, if it's conducive to your priorities, your beliefs, your inquiries, your direction in life. So when we're young, we're vastly in the learning and growing process. And then I think that's something to keep that kind of open-minded or curious wonderment about us, not just settle for easy answers. There are a lot of easy answers. I don't know if they're easy, but they're already available. Mao's little red book, the 10 Commandments. I mean, wherever you look, there are answers. But it didn't answer it for me. I looked. So I kept looking. In the 60s, I looked in consciousness experiments and arts and, of course, love. I don't know what we did in the 60s because I was there, so I can't remember, as they say. But sex, drugs, and rock and roll. But, friendships. Like my college roommate is still one of my best friends, even though he lives on the other side of the world. So now we've been friends for over 50 years. And some of my compatriots, spiritual brothers and sisters I met in India, brothers, sisters, and others I met in India in the 70s and 80s are still among my best spiritual friends. So none of us can do it alone. So there's a lot of ways to seek and find out. But this is what I want to say, and then I'll get back to your sort of question, I think, about faith and blind faith. Please remind me if I don't. Get back to that. No one can do it alone, but no one's exempt from participating because we're all connected. Even the hermit, which is rare, in the cloister, in the cave, in the desert, is still connected to the elements and the earth and the food and some kind of systems, the society, and plays their role. But that's a very rare case, just to exaggerate the point. We're all interconnected. And that's very important. Even the Dalai Lama, who's a lifelong monk, which means alone, says no one can do it alone because we have to, enlightenment, awakening, the enlightened life needs warm, empathic compassion, not just cool, calm, and clear wisdom. So to put it, simply head and heart. So cultivating heart and relations and love, compassion, empathy, generosity, forgiveness, as well as, insight, awareness, higher consciousness, all these things, it sounds like mental. It's beyond mental. There's also intuition and transcendental awareness, all kinds of things beyond just conceptual thinking. But head and heart. So none of us can do it alone. We need to cultivate both. So investigation is a very important part of that, questioning, investigation. So my Lama Kala Rinpoche, my guru, I lived with him in Darjeeling in the 70s, called me the question man, True Gyatso. But then I asked him one day if that was okay, if I was taking up too much of his time because he had so many responsibilities and refugees and, Tibetan refugees from Chinese invasion and all. And we lived in refugee camp, monastery. And he said, yes, ask all your questions. Then one day you too will know. And that's the point. Seekers must become finders, not just be the eternal graduate student, never getting a life off campus and growing up, living on fellowships, or even being a professor that can't live outside of campus. The eternal student, which sounds good, but it's time to grow up and then like all that we've, whatever you want to call it, gained, funneled, received, pay it forward, pass it on. Teaching, whatever, sharing, parenting, leading, contributing is one of the greatest ways to learn also, and we learn other things, not just in our schooling. You've been asking about faith. Faith, blind. In Tibet, we say there's 3 kinds of faith: blind faith, longing faith. Like blind faith, you just accept what's been passed down or something, you know, however you want to define that. It's not really worked out rationally or by much checking it out. Longing faith, where you sort of have a feeling about something and you're longing to find out whether it's true or not. So you're like making some steps, looking into it, doing some things, I don't know what, reading, thinking, talking to others who of kindred interests. So that's longing faith, which kind of brings you further along. And then you get to like lucid faith, which isn't really faith, it's more like conviction. Not
Of
just
experience.
dogmatic,
Yeah.
not just dogmatic belief, which I don't think is conviction, is often very insecure, very defensive, very rigid, because there's an insecurity there they haven't found out for yourself. So it brings unshakable or irreversible kind of lucid faith, we call it, which is really a conviction or realization. You know, like, you know, there's a there. You've experienced it, even though you're back here now again, with the other chickens clucking in the barnyard. You know, there's a there. There's something beyond the barnyard. There's a bigger world. Maybe there's, you know, other worlds, other realities, other heavens. But even in this world, it's not just our barnyard and our way of life. So when you know there's a there, the quest is a lot different than hoping you'll get somewhere and that there's a there. You don't just fall off the end of the flat earth because you think it's not flat, but you don't know really. So the seekers must become finders. And I think that's the place of faith and devotion, to evolve and find yourself. Find yourself. It has a lot of levels.
So when you headed off on your seeking journey as a 20-year-old,
Mm-hmm.
what was that within you that set you off on that journey?
It sounds crazy now, doesn't it? But also not really. It's very traditional, you know, in history for people to set out, or for like one, you know, I don't want to say one son, one, like in the brothers Karamazov, of the three brothers representing different kinds of people. You know, one child stays home and one child goes out, and one's the black sheep and one's takes up the family business, or, you know, whatever. And there's other kinds, styles among the same siblings. I was the oldest, and my grandparents came from Eastern Europe, so we already had some kind of sense of the wandering Jew or the seeker of better life, or, you know, some kind of mobility, even though my parents had they were the first generation to go to college, and they settled in Brooklyn and, you know, went in New York, and my father was in the army and went overseas. But, you know, we were a New York tribe or clan or family. So it was not that hard for me to go elsewhere. We traveled all over the East Coast in cars on vacations, not just flying to Florida or somewhere. We, you know, saw things and met people and had some relatives. And so when I graduated from college, of course, I had some experiences in the 60s and the anti-war movement and things. You know, became aware of Vietnam, the secret bombings of Cambodia, and other things going on in Ireland and the Middle East, and the banana republics and all that in South America. I admit we didn't know that much about what was going on down under, as we call it, where you live. Certainly the Aborigines had their troubles. Instead of studying these things, life's big questions in graduate school, I went to the Himalayas in India thinking that was another way of life and a different approach, and I wanted to. And I always thought I was going for a few months. You know, when you're 20 years old, you don't really have a 5 or 10 year plan. As my mother would say, little did I know he was going to be away for 10 or 20 years. I think it was 10 or was it 20? But little did I know either. So it was kind of karma, and, you know, the time.
Yes,
It
I
was
was
the
going to.
60s and the time to expand consciousness and go to those places. And some people wrote about it. Some people went and came back and talked about it. Allen Ginsberg and other, and Asian masters coming and going, and yoga was coming, and transcendental meditation, and the Beatles. We all love the Beatles. Even now, I want to see the 8 hour, I think it is, Beatles movie that just came out. I just heard Neil Young talking about it on NPR. He hasn't seen it either. We all want to see it, The Beatles went to Rishikesh and learned meditation from the Maharishi in some year, 65 or something. And they were also, Mia Farrow and the movie star and other interesting people. And so we heard about these things. So I went there instead of South America or Africa or, I don't know, Australia, New Zealand. More recently, people have been going to New Zealand and Tasmania, and, I have to go there someday, maybe. I don't really have a bucket list, but it's a great place down under. So I'm not really a seeker anymore, although I am, I'm a student of life and a student of Buddha, but I'm also a teacher, and I found what I was looking for. That's the point I want to make.
Yeah,
not from the boasting point of view, and I'm writing a memoir about this. If I can do it, you can do it. Anybody can do it. That's the message. There is a there, and it's here. And it's not just something people found in the ancient times by going on a pilgrimage to some holy land. The Holy Land is within. And the Holy Land is wherever you are. Holy, holy, holy. It's holy all the way up and all the way down. But anyway, that's, sort of another subject.
Well, that's the beauty of it, isn't it? Is that you actually had to go there to find that it's
everywhere.
That it's everywhere, and that's the thing I'm trying to deconstruct right now. Is that what is the going away? Is the going away necessary to realize?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, but it doesn't mean you have to go away from your Perth. You're Perthed there on the west coast of that island, as we call it in Tibetan, the island of Australia, Even North America is an island in Tibetan, a continent. But, still, it's just an island floating in the sea. And it's not just a sea of water, it's the sea of the cosmos. Anyway, you have to go away, but it may not be from what one thinks on first glance. So Milarepa, Tibet's greatest saint and yogi, poet, also sang 1,000 years ago in his famous 100,000 Songs of Milarepa, and you can find them. It's a world literature book, classic. He said, to leave one's home is to accomplish half of the Dharma, half of the spiritual quest. And that's fine and well and good if you live in that kind of culture where travel, to leave means you're not leaving and coming back so easily without modern communications and travel. So, but really what it means is to get out of your rut. So you started our conversation very interestingly with, your lovey image that you put in our minds, certainly mine, of you lying there with your bambinos, as I like to call them, your little darlings, your little rascals, whatever they are, your beautiful children, and, and your loving heart in your bed, let's call it, I suppose. But you're listening to the deep and interesting teachings and going along, so you're kind of meditating, inquiring, learning, feeling into it. So you're making the journey. So you are getting out of your rut of just being, an animal in the reproductive process of evolution in your nest. You're also gaining in self-consciousness in the things that distinguish the humans from most of the animals, as far as we know. And going on the quest, just like historically, the Grail quest or the pilgrimage to the Holy Land or any other, mythological or historical archetype of the quest, the great quest, the quest for, fill in the blank, God, enlightenment, truth, to find yourself. Actually, you seem to be grown up and together and, nice woman and everything good. But maybe there's more than just oneself in that sense. There's also the supreme self. That to find oneself means to really grow up, to become all we can be, not just to get older and have reproduce and then have grandchildren. Of course, being a mother is like being a guru of the whole clan is very important. But when you know yourself, then your children will be much, have a much better chance at really flourishing and being all that they are and can be. God's children, not just in your rut.
Yeah.
I mean, you want them to make their way and find their people and their place in the world, even if it's next door. But it doesn't have to be next door. Their place and their people. Their people might be very different than your, quote, people. And I mean kindred spirits, not just lookalikes or think-alikes.
And how do you think, why do you think that the Tibetans were your people? Like, it's such a foreign culture to what you were brought up with and to, to what we...
Well, that's an interesting question. Nobody's ever exactly asked me that. Although people, over the decades and asked me why I lived there or how I felt and why I stayed there. And I say, oh, when I got somewhere, I just felt like, I've arrived. So a little story that I haven't told that much. I've mentioned it now and then. It's not a secret. When I was a child, I used to, in New York and Long Island, the suburbs, in our family house with my siblings and parents, in our intact family, it was safe. I didn't hear gunshots like some people in New York did when they were children, or even worse, having, windows shattered by such things. So I was very secure, and yet every night, it was an exaggeration, at least once a month or more, I would dream about the other side of the world. I would dream about, and I was in the other side of the world. I couldn't tell you where, whether it was Tibet or China or Japan or something, India, but it was the other side of the world. And first, and I would think, oh, it's so far away, but then I realized, but I'm not lonely, like I'm home, I belong here. Not like I don't belong there. It's just kind of vague in child mind. Also, I didn't know that much about it. We didn't have all that we have now in terms of media, where we see everything on the web or on some screen or other. If you went to the library and looked at National Geographic, you could see a few pictures of the other side of the world. Mainly, we wanted to see the women of Africa, if you know what I'm talking about. Not Africa. So there I was, the other side of the world. So I asked my dad, the accountant, well-educated, some traveled from World War II and other tourism and honeymoons and etc. New Yorker, somewhat cosmopolitan. I asked my dad, what about that? What the heck? I mean, I was naive and innocent. I asked him really, like, what does this mean? I didn't say, was I reborn from there, or like, should I go? I didn't have such complex thoughts. I must have been 8, 9, 10. I asked, Dad, what is this? It's me, dreaming so much about being on the other side of the world. So he said, again, I want to say well-educated and well-read and, everything. And his parents had come from Europe, so he knew about, Europe, and he had been abroad in the war, not fighting, but in the army and things like that. And he said, oh, Jeff, it's just a dream. Don't worry about it. So that was as far as that line of inquiry went, if you see what I mean. So there's some reason I went afar to find this. Even though at home, I learned Judaism and Bar Mitzvah and, something about history and other countries. But thus, I went somewhere else to find it. I was not finding it. The answer to my questions here. Of course, I had great friends and great, and loves and everything in college. And then I was 20, I graduated, and I went over there. So it wasn't just Tibet, it was over there. I felt at home. First in India and in Nepal and Tibet and Sikkim and Ladakh. I lived for a year in Japan. I was into mainland China a few times, but, I felt like my people, well, not really my people, it's just like I belonged and things were ripening. Of course, when you're in your 20s, everybody, many people could look back on that and think that was like the greatest time of their life, I hope. I mean, I don't know. seems to me. It's a great time. So I happened to be there, so it was the greatest time of my life. But it has not exactly been all downhill since then. But I did stay there in my 20s and 30s, and then kept going back there in my 40s and 50s a little. So I think it's partly karma, whatever that means, like from the past, and also my karma, like what I say, nature and nurture. So the nature of the modern world and mobile society and, the wandering Jew and the immigrants and things, and the new world here in North America and people going west to California. It's still going on in a way, or it was. And then nurture, my parents and traveling and education and thinking about other things. And then consciousness raising things like drugs and meditation and creativity, arts and writing and reading, of course. And people inspired me to look further and elevate my gaze and bigger open mind. So that led me to that.
When you talk about karma, one of the podcasts that I have listened to of yours so many times is the one where you talk about the 16th Karmapa. And you, I think, maybe sitting in your room that you're sitting in now, and you go through old photos and you.
Photo and the Dalai Lama is right there.
Yes,
but he's always with me, even though he died to talk English in 81.
So when I listen to that podcast, there's something about that I can't get enough of. I want to hear more. I want to learn more. Like there is an energy there, and I can't help but think that is that comes from somewhere.
Absolutely, that's
like
karma.
Like my all the teachers and
my wife saw a picture of the 16th Karmapa, who was long gone. And I have so many other pictures around of gurus and saints, and also, people I didn't know, like Gandhi. And she loved the pictures. She loved the 16th Karmapa. There's like a karmic affinity. So maybe that she and I had a karma too. So I have a karma, maybe we had something in the last life or in this lineage, some connection or some life together or near. And maybe you too. And I'm not like hitting on you or like, trying to puff you. This is neither great nor, good nor bad. It's just, where does this come from? Like, even where does these thoughts come from? Are we really producing them? Can we stop them? No. The karma is ripening, physical, mental, emotional, psychological, psychic. It's the wheel is turning. Things, cause and effect. Evolution, history, based on what came before comes what's next. Evolution is a good example of karma. And it doesn't mean it's all predetermined. Maybe we can't control the big winds of karma that are blowing through history or through our nationalities or through our continents. But we can learn how to sail better, how to navigate, how to use the rudder, course correct, whatever. We don't have to be blown away like dead leaves before the wind. We can be more masterful, more skillful, establish our directions and priorities and fulfill them. And that's the secret of karma. The bad news is that we're heavily conditioned, but the good, that's karma, conditioning, cause and effect. But the good news is that it's just conditioning. Conditioning can be, by definition, can be reconditioned. Even the heaviest conditionings, like, let's say, addictions, can be reconditioned. Even heroin addicts can be rehabilitated. We all know, I believe, that ex-addicts are often the best drug counselors. So it's not hopeless. So even not to mention, our own neurotic habits or unfulfilling habits, looking for love in all the wrong places, we can learn to do better. Reconditioning can be reconditioned and ultimately deconditioned. That's the great freedom. So we try to replace positive habits and karma with negative, replace negative or unwholesome or unfulfilling, unsatisfying habits and karma actions with causes with better ones, wholesome, fulfilling, and then that's the reconditioning. And then those ruts are a little less deep, so we're not stuck in them as much. Then there's more freedom to refine those ruts and make some other ruts. Like, I don't know what in Australia if you say this, and I don't know if you're married or not. You said you have the children, so God bless you. But married, whatever that means, with somebody. But
Yes, Ram Dass married us.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
So sometimes people get married too early, and then somebody calls it a starter marriage, and then later they find they're more soulmate when they know who they are better and stay with them. I mean, this is just one story. Like starter marriage. So, we can course correct. We could learn. We don't just have to have a marriage like our parents did.
Yes.
That's just a caricature of, we just have to keep doing the same as if we're in lockstep. We're not in lockstep. And that's the secret of self-mastery and all of these trainings, well, cultivating loving kindness and mindfulness, praying, setting your intention, yoga, working with your energy and chakras and channels, not just calisthenics and physical exercise, developing inner strength and integrity and character, not just muscles, or not just intellect also. There's so many kinds of intelligence: emotional intelligence, not just intellectual intelligence, emotional intelligence, spatial intelligence, bodily intelligence, relational intelligence. And what else does Howard Gardner talk about in his book? It's on this 8 kinds of intelligence. Existential intelligence, which when I asked him in person, I said, why don't you do spiritual intelligence? He said, it's too vague to me. It fits in with existential intelligence.
So
being smart is not enough, obviously. A lot of smart people commit suicide, have serious problems, are harmful in the world, etc. Are addicts or alcoholics. I don't have to explain.
So going back to this, and I think this is really important for people in this time when they sense this connection with a teacher. They sense this connection, this energy, that there is some wisdom to be gained by following this certain path, and then setting
like
out
the longing faith. You have a sense there's something there, and you're longing to find out about it more. Like you get the scent.
Yes,
You said
absolutely.
Ram Dass married you, so you got the scent of
Yes.
Ram Dass or Maharaji or God. The guru is the doorway to God, let's say, just to have a placeholder. So you got the scent, so that's the longing faith, and you think there must be something there, so you start to check it out, and then maybe you get some of that more, then you get closer. But go on.
Yeah, I had a similar situation with my father, actually. I went through it felt like a dark period when I was a little kid. And when I would go to sleep, I would think that nothing existed and that all of existence would go. And then when I would wake up, it would reform. And I would get up in the night.
That's true that it might sound, but that's a pretty sophisticated kid mind. Where did that come from?
I don't know. And I would wake up in the middle of the night thinking that no one existed, and then go to my dad, who would be up. He was an insomniac, workaholic, and I would ask him about it, and he would go, "Oh, Joe,
yeah,
you're just being silly.
Too much. Yeah,
you're thinking too much. Go back to bed." So obviously the depth of what I was seeking wasn't available in my own home or in my community so much. And I go back to the Dalai Lama saying, should you become a Buddhist? No, you shouldn't. You should become the religion that your grandmother is, But for some of us who are drawn outside of these, to these other places, I would like for you to just to talk about that for a little bit. You know, in these days of cultural appropriation and all of these things, but when you have this authentic longing and connection and to follow that outside of your tradition.
Well, I'm hesitating which way to launch into, this particular tirade that I'm about to go on.
Oh, good.
First of all, I'm very touched by what you said, and your your childlike speculations or intuitions and question. Very amazing. And then also I'm touched that you had such a feeling from my root guru's 16th Karmapa. Like I said, not everybody does. And my wife gravitated right to that picture among the other late gurus that were on my altar or something. So, we must have some karma together. You have some karma with that teacher or lineage. So that's beautiful and very touching. And, it makes my heart happy because I know that there's really something, there for you. Like for me, like for us, there's really authentic juice there. It's a real mine. If you plumb the mine, you get the ore, and refine the ore, you get the, gold, and you get the alchemist's gold, the philosopher's stone, the cosmic wisdom or whatever God's mind is, heart mind. So, the Dalai Lama, I doubt he said be the religion of your grandmother, but he says a lot of things. What I have heard him say many times is, and this is the way he says it, there's no need to, he doesn't say don't probably, but anyway, that's not the important part of my retranslation here. I want everybody to hear this, including you. He says you don't have to become a Buddhist or convert from anything to anything, but these practices, this path can help you be a better whatever you are.
Yeah.
So that's like what you said. But, I just say it doesn't have to be the religion of your grandmother or your parents, or even about religion. You could be a better atheist or agnostic. You could be a better, I don't know, Muslim. Why not? A better person, a mensch, a better whatever you are. So if you do these practices, and like I'll just pick on meditation and yoga, then you get clearer and healthier, and outer and inner and mystic ways. And when I'm clear, everything becomes clear. I'm going to keep saying that. Buddha said something like that under the tree. He said, when I was enlightened, all were enlightened, even the trees and the mountains. So that's a little hyperbole. I don't know if trees and mountains get enlightened, but Buddha seems to have got pretty enlightened and wise and selfish and selfless and everything. So my understanding is it's like when we become clearer, things become clearer. They don't necessarily change, but we are changed, and then we have different relations to things. So that's where the action is, to be a better whatever you are, not to convert. So what we are is the big question, and that's the Grail quest to find oneself or reality or your true nature or your inner divinity. Your inner, since you look like a female, I'll say your inner goddess, just talking in general words, but it's beyond any form. The absolute real has no gender. And can be, takes every form. Ram Dass used to say, and I remember a poster he made in the 70s, I saw it on the wall once. Maybe he said Maharaji said it, I can't remember. The poster said in English, the best form in which to worship God is every form. So that's not to say everything's one in like some, blenderized soup, like fish soup instead of distinctive cuisines and other specialties. And not to mention there's some food and some poison. There's a difference. It's not all one. But, there's unity in the diversity. That's the bigger vision. And seeing the light in everyone and everything. So it's in every form, and it's the macrocosm and the microcosm. It's in each of us. And that's very, the direction, I think. not to be a Buddhist or not a Buddhist. Like, sure, I'm a Buddhist, but my mother was Jewish, my parents were Jewish, so I'm Jewish too. I'd never say I'm not Jewish, but I didn't convert. Buddhism isn't for converting. But I kind of woke up, and then I start to see it everywhere and everything, including in Judaism. So that's how I think about it. And then you become a better whatever you are. If you talk about religions, most of the world's great religions, and I don't mean they're bad religions, I mean the 7 major or 8 major world religions that historians define, they all mostly have the same code of ethics and some cosmology about the bigger, where it comes from or where it goes. You know, many common characteristics, very much alike, but maybe different emphasis. Maybe it's true that they're all climbing up the mountain, spiritual mountain, to get to, you know, there's one peak but many sides and many paths. That's one image. I don't know. I like that. Doesn't mean all religions are the same. But we're all the same. You know, we're the same and we're not the same. We're mostly the same. We seem very different. Diversity is beautiful, but we're all mostly whatever we are, 95% water, and we're Homo sapiens, and we're all born from a womb, I guess, and die. And, you know, the amount of same and similar far outweighs the amount of difference among human beings, I'm sure. And we all have the inner light or the inner divinity or the Christos in us, etc., including the so-called sinners or nasties, or the ones we don't like, even the worst ones. I'm not going to mention any names, you know what I mean? People's mind will jump to Hitler or somebody. But, you know, he also had the spark in him, the light. Somebody must have loved him, his mother, I hope. Eva Braun, his wife. His dogs, he liked dogs. He was a vegetarian, whatever that's worth. The dogs must have loved him. He fed them. You know, there's some good in the man. Not that I'm going to defend him. Just saying. That's what love thine enemies means, as the Buddha said. Or maybe it was Jesus. Whatever. But that's something to practice and to open our hearts to. To love even what we don't like, even who we differ with. Even the person on the other side of the political aisle that seems so vile. I won't mention any names, you know. But love is the way, and that's a big unconditional love, the divine love, beyond like and dislike. And cultivating that is the way. It's not something that just drops on some people and not on others, I don't think.
Yes, cultivating practices of loving kindness and really cultivating genuine sense of love, and then trying to stretch that out.
Yeah, into practical actions like helpfulness, protecting the weaker ones or the smaller ones or the sick ones, the underprivileged ones, the oppressed ones, generosity and giving of oneself, caritas. The word charity, caritas, giving of oneself, not just giving $1 to a panhandler on the street to get him out of your way, but lending a shoulder, lending an ear, being there for someone. The inner generosity, letting go a little. Non-attachment is a big form of generosity, rather than grasping and craving and always wanting and, you know, trying to collect all the marbles in one's own corner. So that's why we say it's a way of life. It's a spiritual journey. You can't just read the tourist brochures. I mean, you can, but, you know, without going on the journey, it's like reading recipes and not cooking and eating. It doesn't really serve the whole purpose of recipes.
In your book, Buddha Is as Buddha Does, you have a quote from Mother Teresa. The problem with the world is that we draw our family circle too small. And that was above the, I think, your practice of Tonglen. And I remember at the last retreat that you were at in Maui, and I asked you, it was one of your morning meditations, and I asked you about that, about the situation of being in India really earnestly trying to cultivate a generous heart, but feeling very confronted by all the beggars with their hands out and
Their leper hands and stumps and etc. grabbing your clothes or
that's
whatever.
right. That's right. And just every day going out for breakfast and coming home was just confronting me time and time again about, am I a good person? Am I a generous person? It was
Yeah, right.
sometimes I didn't go out for breakfast because it was just too confronting. And then ultimately, I guess I came to some sort of peace, but it wasn't a peace that I was really happy with or proud of. And yeah, sorry, that just came to mind. I still haven't really reconciled that, I don't think. I think,
What's the issue that you couldn't give, let's say, money or food to every single beggar? Because there are hundreds, and if you give them to a bunch, even if you give it to the wrong one, then 100 jump on you.
yes,
I mean,
yes, yes. And then the thought of like, well, how much do I really need? And why should I have
you
so
could give all
much?
your money.
You could give
Yeah,
it all.
you
Yes,
take
that's
it
right.
home. Then how are you going to get breakfast?
Yeah,
Whatever. You
yeah,
stay and be a beggar too, or you couldn't really work to make money there.
that's right. I guess there's always more that you can give and open, isn't there? And
That's
and
why
I,
I
I think
mentioned
that's
about
the
giving
point.
oneself, not
Yeah,
just the outer giving, which is so important.
yeah,
Material things, whether it's money or food or clothes or medicine or tools, but also the inner things like giving them knowledge, giving of yourself, giving protection, lending a shoulder, lending an ear, as I said, being there for others, giving time, being helpful. As they say, if you teach the poor village, if you give the poor village fish, by the river village, it's only good for one lunch or one feast. But if you teach them how to fish, it could change them into a flourishing village for a very long time. So, giving knowledge, not just I know better than you knowledge, that's like tools, helpfulness, usefulness. So, giving Dharma, for example, if you're in that position, giving love, that's all part of outer inner generosity. In the book you mentioned of Mind, Buddha is as Buddha does, the 10 transformative practices for enlightened living, about the Buddhist virtues, the paramitas, the Panacean virtues of the Bodhisattva, the spiritual awakener, Bodhisattva. Generosity comes first, which is interesting.
yes,
Considering Buddha was a monk, you would think ethics and moral discipline would come first, virtue. But generosity comes first because on the innermost level, it's really non-attachment, letting go, open hand, open arms, open heart. So that's very important. And to come back to your story, and which is moving, we all have to experience that. You just can't give to everybody. You can't say yes all the time. Not to beggars, not to your children, not to your neighbors. Healthy boundaries are necessary. Sometimes saying no to the children is more affirmative than yes. Then they get spoiled or they get hurt. Sometimes you have to say no. Sometimes you have to shout no to keep them from going out in the street with traffic. I don't know if you have traffic in Perth. You probably do. I have traffic. I'm from New York. I have traffic on the mind.
we most certainly do. Yes, I do.
But enjoy its path. It's not just a horror show. There's a buoyance of spirit. Wisdom is a higher form of sanity. Otherwise, it's not a wisdom path. I mean, there's a joy, there's a freedom here. There's an alignment with, I'm not going to use the word reality, how about evolution, which has a feeling of progressive and, growth, let's say. Evolution seems to be a fact, not just, saying we'll all be enlightened one day. I'm not saying that, but aligning ourselves with the universal principles and having higher consciousness, better communities, finding a third way besides this oppositional way we have of politics or war and all. The third way of mutual interest, like how are we going to rebalance and save the environmental disaster that seems to be looming if we don't do it together? Who knew? We Americans thought we could hide behind the oceans, and we did. But we couldn't hide behind it, in the Second World War, First World War anymore. And now we all have to share the same air pollution and water pollution. Finding potable water is going to be the next wars of the next century or sooner, not oil. These are real problems, the environmental degradation that we all share, because we all share the same sky and same oceans and same clouds and water and so many other things. Air, sunlight, polluted air is going to affect all kinds of growing things. The sunlight is getting refracted, and there's just a lot to think about there. It's a huge problem, but we have to pay attention. We're still going in the wrong direction, and people still arguing even about the science or the politics, or can we afford it? We can't afford not to. Otherwise, our grandchildren and great-grandchildren are not going to have air and water. Not just have poverty or something. I mean, the species could go out of business, just like the dinosaurs did. I know people don't think that we're like the dinosaurs, but speaking about the bigger global picture, global geology and all, humans have only been here for, depends on how you count, from the cavemen or from the Bible, but whatever, like 100,000, 200,000 years since we were like Cro-Magnon or apes, humans, Homo sapiens. The dinosaurs were here for like 70 million years. And then the environment changed and they all were gone. What's going to keep us from all being gone before another 100,000 or 10,000 or 1,000 years goes? If we don't take care of this home of ours, this vehicle, Buckminster Fuller, the genius of the last century, who invented the geodesic dome, he called it Spaceship Earth. It's like we're all crew members on this spaceship Earth. We can't ignore vehicle maintenance. Anyway, there's a few thoughts about the outer and the inner. The inner giving is also important, but the outer giving has to occur too. We can't just rationalize not giving, things because we're being unattached or because, we're just giving loving kindness. It's good to radiate metta, but it's also good to act compassion in action and unselfish service and give without expecting in return. That's karma yoga. That's saved service.
Yes.
Without expecting in return. Like even when your kids become teenagers and they individuate and they shout at you that they hate you, or once in a while, or they are ungrateful, you still love them, even though you don't like that. Nobody likes that. You still love them and you soldier on. You always, you get out of their way and you let them go, but you're still right behind them. You're there for them. You soldier on because you love them. That's the big love. It's not even a choice. So that also helps us to love what we don't like and love our enemies and be more balanced and not so partial.
I've been reading The Immortality Key from Brian Mirarescu.
Mm-hmm.
And he talks about the Eleusinian mysteries and how in antiquity, in the town of Eleusis, people, great leaders and intellectuals would take pilgrimage, like a yearly pilgrimage, and they would drink the sacramental drink, which is thought to have been a hallucinogenic potion.
You mean like ayahuasca or soma or who knows
Yes,
what?
yes,
Magic,
yes,
etc.
some sort of soma, and that and this was great people like Plato and Pythagoras, and and my memory is not very good about who said this. Maybe it was Pythagoras, in that if the mystery, if we if that if going into the mystery ceased to continue, politics and democracy just wouldn't work.
Yes.
And
It's like losing our soul as a species or society.
yes, I can't help
But
but
the end soul,
think
we can't just expect the bodies to flourish when there's, loss of soul.
that's it. I can't help but think about where we are politically in today's age, where democracy is in today's age, has come from divorcing ourselves from the mystery and from, I mean, not necessarily taking the sacrament, but maybe we've outlawed that as well.
Mm-hmm.
And I can't help but think that the time of the 60s, there was something in that, wasn't there? There was something in that time of maybe it was a little too casual, and not with a real set and setting and purpose, but nonetheless, from there was this huge revolution, and I can't help but think that there is something into those mystery schools and going into the mystery, and as he puts it, dying before you die.
Mm-hmm.
This process.
And you die.
That's right. And then when you do die, you won't die.
Well, that's a mystery.
Yeah.
To penetrate, chew on, as it were, one way
Yes.
or another. Well, if we're talking about soul, which is Buddhism's favorite word, if we're talking about soul, there is the notion of immortality or uncorruptibility or even changeless. So, evolution and soul, I'm not sure they entirely go together. So it's not really a scientific theory that can be measured. Just to talk to you as a Dharma friend and Guru Bayini, Guru sister, Ram Dass, sometimes he would say, "Oh, I see you're an old soul. Look, when you were 5 years old, you were talking like that."
Yes, he talks about soul pods, doesn't he?
Yeah, right. Yeah. About finding your people and then you'll always be with them. He talks about that in his last book, which he and Mirabai Bush wrote, called Walking Each Other Home. Eldership and death and dying and walking each other home. It's beautiful. Yeah. First of all, I'd like to give a shout out to the mystery schools and the timeless wisdom traditions that still do exist on this endangered, beleaguered planet. I don't know how well the Eleusinian mysteries or the Atlantean mysteries, the Egyptian mysteries, or others, even like more modern, like Rosicrucians or other, mysteries. Freemasons, it seems to be pretty secular now with just having a club. But there's a lot of ancient wisdom schools and traditions still going on, including within the religions. Sufism and Islam and Tantra and etc. in Himalayan Buddhism and in Hinduism and Kabbalah and the other thing, Hasidism, in Judaism and etc. in Taoism. So I think this is important to recognize, and it's not majority rule in the spiritual world. So these things still do go on. And as Teilhard de Chardin, the Jesuit genius anthropologist and writer of the 20th century, early 20th century, wrote, it's the prayers during World War I. which seemed so hopeless if you were French and a European like he was, so hopeless at some time with all the slaughter of the new machine gun era and all that. He said it's only the prayers of the hermits in caves and deserts that's keeping this world afloat right now. So it's like the soma, or these things, these sacred substances. One tiny drop can liberate, or clarify, or like bring the milk into butter, without endless churning and majority rule, which is the law of the relative world of democracy and those things. So the prayers of those few hermits are keeping the world afloat now, when the society seems to have gone mad. So that's something to think about. And we overlook or ignore the timeless wisdom traditions at our peril. It's like a natural resource that we ignore, because it's here and it's in us, and it's also the learning and the traditions are still there, like what you're reading about. But it's certainly eclipsed, especially in the modern technological age, secular age, more than ever. And science seems to be, if you want to say, the new religion, and the scientists are our prophets, for better or for worse. So we have to do our part to, I think, address that and rebalance that and bring some real higher evolutionary learning into the so-called higher education process. Wisdom for life and things like that, not just vocational training, going to college, higher education, so-called for vocational training. Better to make a life than just a living. So we call that right livelihood or wise vocation. In Buddhism, it's one of the steps on the Eightfold Path. Even Buddha, who was a monk, he said each of the steps is as important as the others. So wise mindfulness is as important as wise livelihood. Making a life, not just a living, doing work that helps you grow, not just stunting yourself by working for food and a roof over the head of you and your family. So I think the timeless wisdom traditions are still here. What's happening in the world, there's a lot to say, but I would just say, don't be a news junkie. It could be very depressing. And the news, if it bleeds, it reads. That's an old journalistic slogan. So the bad news is always there highlighted. Look for some of the good news. There's people falling in love, and babies being born, and miraculous cures, and flowers blooming, and beautiful things happening, and sunrise and sunset, and even we wake up in the morning and breathe. It's a miracle. And we start to take it for granted. So let's look for some of the good news also. And that helps. And, try to see, like I say, the 3/4 of the glass that's full, not the half that's empty. And keep a sense of humor and, about it. That's part of the mystery. Who knows, really? I mean, is the word omniscient even relevant? Is God omniscient? I mean, what does that even mean? I mean, there's so much to know. How do you raise your children, Joe? Who taught you? Maybe you learned from your mother or from a book like Dr. Spock or somebody more modern. I don't know. But, it's on-the-job training. And only love can guide you. And doing it more for them than for you. If you're a selfish parent, you know how that's going to affect your kids sooner or later. They'll be selfish, but they'll also be less nourished and nurtured. It's not a prescription for wellness and flourishment. So I think these timeless principles are still applicable, including living into the questions, not just finding an easy answer or a conceptual answer. I have a book about life's big questions and how to find your own answers. It's called The Big Questions. How to find your own answers to life's essential mysteries. And I took 14 questions. I asked a lot of people what their big questions were, but I came up with 14 questions. In my own mind, it amused me because I picked 14, because the Buddha, at the time of the Buddha, India was quite a developed society, and they had writing and memorized things and learning. So there were 14 questions, apparently, that he never answered. Like, is there God? And where did the world come from? Things like that he said, it's not conducive to the enlightenment I teach. arguing or debating about that. That's not my subject. So 14 questions. So I took up the questions that I felt like I and people were asking, like I mentioned before. Why do bad things happen to good people? What happens when we die or after we die? Is there a God or gods? And if so, what kind? Things like that. What is the meaning and purpose of life, or even more pertinently, my life? How to live. So that's already enough to think about. That's only 5. And you, from the age of whatever you were, that little girl, you were chewing on the big mysteries, trying to crack the big nut right there. Exist or not exist? Does the world exist when I'm no longer here? What happens when we die? Does the world go away? You were a child. You said, well, whatever you said, I forgot already.
Yeah.
When I'm asleep, is the world there or not there? And then you wake up in the morning. Did they all come back? I don't know. However you put it. So from the mouths of babies, as the good book says, the wisdom, the innocence, the freshness comes, the wonderment. Again, having a good question, the real question, is as good as having some right answer by somebody else's definition.
Yes, and also that realization of, we'll never know, really.
That's the mystery.
That's the mystery.
And we tolerate the mystery of not knowing, which means not being in control. Can we tolerate doing our best, although we know we're not in control, but we're also not helpless? We can steer, we can course correct, but we can't control the bigger winds. So that's the principle of self-mastery and self-empowerment and agency. And by self, I don't mean selfish or narcissistic, but self and other empowerment, and not being helpless or waiting for somebody in the nation's capital to do it for us.
Yes, I loved that point in time when you started going from meditation to weeditation. That was very, very impactful for me. I up until that point, I had only been meditating.
Yeah.
Not weeditating.
People think you meditate to get peace and calm, but there's so much more to that, like to go beyond oneself and to, from me to we. And what I want and need, you and other people want and need, and pursuing it through different ways according to our conditioning, or whatever we call it. But everybody wants and needs the basic, whether it's nourishment and protection when we're young, or love and belonging and purpose as we get older, or community. So that's the we. How can I be happy and just rest on my enlightenment laurels when people around me are miserable and the society is, having riots and terrorism or poverty? Now we have pandemic. Again, the me. We can't hide behind the oceans or on our little island there of Australia, our gigantic continent. Still, it's not that big. We can't hide from the pandemic that seems to have come from other continents. We're all connected with the same air and the same water and the same travel routes now.
We are really deep in this between worlds state at the moment. Stu's Nan is she's in the final stages of life, and the family have been gathering around her bedside, doing, just holding vigil for her. And she's 92 and very, very strong. And
God bless her.
Everyone was thinking on Friday that she would pass, and then Saturday, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, here we are, nearly a week of not drinking or eating. And it's been big for the whole family and the kids and the grandkids to just sit and listen to her labored breathing. And just be with that, you know, what is this breath on this side, and then what is on the
Yeah.
other side. It's
Where is Nan when she stops breathing? Is she gone? She's still lying there.
that's right. That's right.
So that's those big questions touches on so many things. So let me say, I'm glad you're all together, and it sounds like she's home, but maybe she's in a hospice. I don't know. Is she home?
She is in a hospice. Yeah.
But you can be with her long
We
term?
can be with her. Yeah.
Yeah. So having talked about the joy and buoyance of spirit and everything, let me say it, but I don't want to be like maudlin or something, but Buddha said, contemplating death and mortality and impermanence is the greatest meditation. Always keep it in the forefront of one's conscience. So that's good for kids to be with and to know it's happening and it's not that scary, maybe. You know, get used to it a little, or realize it's something, whatever they take away from it. You know, some people hide death from the children, and that's fine, I guess. I mean, I'm not a parent to decide that for anyone, but maybe we lost touch with some of the natural rhythms of day and night with electricity and all, and with our 24/7 society and media and all. Maybe we lose touch with life and death and age and the beauty of eldership and, you know, the wisdom of the elders and the natural cycles. It's sad that Nan is dying, but the children and her kids and grandkids are there. Much sadder if the children were dying, one of the children or the grandchild. This is the natural cycle. For the grandparents go, then the parents, then the children. That's like good news. So that's the beauty of the natural cycle, and, you know, accepting that and knowing we're not going to be forever. So it's like now or never. Live now. Don't put it off till you retire. Might never get there. Or when you do, you're not yourself anymore. Maybe you can't travel or see straight or think or taste when you get there. So it doesn't mean just, you know, instant gratification orientation, but live now. Now's all we have anyway. And everything's changing. You know, Ram Dass is gone now, but where did he go? He's so much with us. And he's been going for years. I used to go to Maui to see him every year, and every year when I left, I thought I'm not going to see him again, you know, ever. I won't be here till next winter or something. But he went on for years like that, and he still is with us and among us, just like our guru, Maharaji, the old man in the blanket, and all the invisible array, however we feel, you know, all the Buddhas, bodhisattvas, gods and goddesses, angels and archangels and nature sprites, and my late parents are always with me, and uncles and aunts and grandparents and benefactors, and my brother and sister are still alive, but they're in other states. But, you know, we're still together, communicating, seeing each other sometimes, doing phone or Zoom. It's a mystery. I said to my brother once, who's grown up, and I mean, I'm older than him, but, you know, we're both gray-haired. Is it really true Mom and Dad are not there in Long Island anymore? He said, yeah, they've been gone 15 years. I said, I know, I didn't forget, but still, when I was at college, when I was in India, they were there. Now, you know, what did that mean? Now they're not there. What does that mean? I'm not an orphan. We're still relating to them, talking about them like they're there. I know what they think about what I'm doing now. They're in
Still
me.
hear that voice, Jeffrey.
Yeah, exactly. Jeffrey. Now then my mother got into Surya Das. There's a phone call for Surya Das. Is there a Surya Das here? With her Brooklyn Jewish accent and exaggerating it.
Lama.
Yeah, exactly. She used to call herself the Mama Lama. And people said, "Oh, you're the Lama Mama?" She said, "No, I'm the Mama Lama, not the Lama's Mama. I'm the Mama Lama. I've been his guru for 50 years. Those Tibetans only for 25 years." She had a good sense of humor.
Beautiful. Oh, Lama Surya Das, this
Yes,
is
I don't know how people do it. How many children do you have, Joe?
two.
God bless you.
Two little girls.
Oh,
Lani, who is 3, and Soleil, who is 8.
beautiful. What beautiful, great ages. Well, she's going to be a tween and a teen any moment. Let's not rush it, but prepare.
Yes, exactly. Exactly.
You know,
I really want
put
to
up your
be,
inner strength.
that's right. I really want to be respectful of your time. We're approaching an hour, and I wonder.
It's my pleasure, absolute pleasure to
Thank you
get
so
together
much.
with all
Thank
my
you.
friends down under or wherever you are.
Yeah, thank you so much. I wonder if I could ask for you to finish with a prayer or a meditation or a chant or anything that you think
Yes,
has come up and relevant from our
yes,
conversation today.
sure. Yes, with pleasure. Thank you for asking. And you know how much I like to chant, and chant's an important part of our practice traditions. I found the chant really opened my heart. First in Tibetan, Jancho Samcho Krimpoche Makye Panan Ke Yuchi Gepa Nyampa Mepa Ya Kane Kandu Pelwa Shou Gewa Dihi Nyududa Chenrezi Wan Drabjune Rawa Chicha Malupa Deyi Salagopa Shou. May the seed of enlightenment be planted where it has not yet been planted. May the lamp of enlightenment be lit where it has not yet been ignited. And where it has been planted, where it has been lit, may it flourish, blaze up, bloom and blossom, and illumine, and nourish, and warm, and feed, and deliver, liberate the entire universe, all beings, human and otherwise. And through the virtue of this practice and our sterling intentions today, may all beings everywhere with whom we are inseparably interconnected be awakened, liberated, healed, fulfilled, in balance, and free. Experience inner and outer freedom and fulfillment. And may we all together complete the spiritual journey, walking each other all the way home. Peace. Just rest in peace. Take a moment. Be peace. Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. Just sitting in peace, breathing peacefully, being aligned, harmonious, present, awake, peace. Not just quiet, peace. This breath, only breath, this moment, only moment, that enjoy the joy of natural meditation, of just being for a few moments together, co-meditating together, intermeditating together, interbeing. Imaho, how sweet it is. And I bow to the Buddha, the God or Goddess, The clear light, the luminous divinity in your seat. Don't overlook it. Imaho. Wonderment. Thank you, Joe.
Thank you
Beautiful.
so much, Lama
Stuart,
Surya. Thank you.
Soleil, and Lonnie, and all who sail with you, and Nan, and all.
Thank you.
Our
Thank you so
invisible
much.
red. You're very welcome.
We so treasure you from afar and appreciate you deeply, and are so grateful to have had the grace of coming across you in our lives. So thank you.
You're very welcome. Never afar.
Okay. Take care. Until next time.
Happy holidays.
Yes. Happy holidays.
Be well. Bye-bye.
Bye.